Hello everyone, welcome to this special episode of the Casual Gamers podcast. This is going to be a Halloween themed episode because with it being close to Halloween and it being the Halloween season, we thought we'd do something a little bit different where we kind of want to dive into the types of games that you would want to play or that we would play and based off like horror type or horror themed games. So we just want to know, like, are you going to be playing games yourself over the Halloween period, and if so, are you going to be playing horror games, or what type of horror games are you going to be playing? And we will discuss along the way as well the types of games that we found appealing as we went through our gaming journey. Just to give a quick brief overview, we'll be discussing like of our first experience of the first type of horror game we played, alongside with the scariest and also our personal favourites. But I know myself, I'm going to be playing horror games over the next couple of weeks, so I'm definitely going to be keeping myself busy. And I'm sure Digvaldi and Stevo, they're also joining me here on the podcast as well. They are going to be doing the same. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we're quickly just going to jump into the whole thing here, and I'm just going to get everything started. So we're just going to say, like, I'm going to be playing horror games over the next couple of weeks, but I'm quickly just going to go over my own personal 3 type of games. And I'm going to start off with my own first game that I ever played, and it pretty much dates back to the days of when I had the Sega Master System. I know we covered a lot of the Master System in the previous podcast episodes. If you haven't watched them, I highly recommend you go and check them out, because we go dive deep into the whole background of when we originally started playing video games. But the first horror game I played would have been on the Master System, and even though there wasn't too many horror games back in those days, but even with that, like, there was very few that really stood out, because at the time I was used to playing games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Space Harrier and all those type of games, so to get to play something that was more darker themed was definitely a new concept to me at the time, and I just found that it was definitely different. And I remember I was down in one of my cousin's house, and he had a game called Master of Darkness for the Sega Master System, and I remember just seeing it and I was completely blown away in it, because like myself and my brothers, Steve-O as well, can remember this, we had a Master System at home and we had a ton of games for it, but I'd never played anything that really looked as good as Master of Darkness did at the time, because it was definitely something that was a step up, and for it being an 8-bit console, it really did look way beyond what I thought at the time was possible for the Master System, because it had really dark themes, really good graphics, but it just, the tone, the vibe it set, even with the music as well, the background music was very, very eerie and very creepy, and you had a mixture of different enemy types where you had zombies, bats, even like vampires, you had wax dolls, there was so many different types of enemies and different areas to explore, and yeah, it was just a phenomenal game, so it was. And yeah, it was more of a side-scrolling kind of like action game, to be very similar into the frame of the Castlevania type games, and it just had that same kind of vibe to it. It was really, really good, just with the, like, in terms of the visuals, everything about it, like, even like, yous remember, guys, yous played it as well. I remember, Dig, you actually played it at 1.2, and you think you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember, like, in the last episode of our podcast, you mentioned that game, and I'd completely forgotten about it. And as soon as you said it, I was straight on to Google looking at it, and that was it. Straight away, I got myself a little retro arcade system here, downloaded the ROM for that, and I was playing it all week, and I loved it.
Nice.
Got you going again.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And like, I know it's basically a Castlevania, clone, but for Master System, it was just amazing.
Yeah, it really was.
Incredible game.
Yeah, it was a cut above the rest. Like for everything, like, you know yourself, like when you used to call over to our house and you seen the types of games you were playing, and you played a lot of them as well. And then we played that. It's just graphically, it was a step up compared to what we were used to at the time, and that's what made it really stand out, because it just looked and played so different compared to what we were used to.
Exactly, and I think the lore in the game, I believe Dracula, right, was in it.
Yeah.
I was told I might have been confusing that with Castlevania. I know Castlevania also is a bit Dracula, but Master of Darkness, I had Dracula and Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And all that stuff when you were a kid, you read about it or you heard it, seen it on TV. I just thought it was a fascinating game. And,
definitely.
Gameplay wise, just so fun to play.
Yeah, because I remember at the time, not long, I think it was slightly before it, or actually after it, I'd actually bought Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it has very similar visual kind of representation and styles to Master of Darkness, but between the two, Bram Stoker's Dracula definitely is a faster paced type of game, even though it has a similar kind of style. But I thought that Master of Darkness had a better flow to it, if you will. I genuinely thought it played better, and it was a better all round and a better looking game as well.
Yeah, better looking.
Yeah, visually, polished, absolutely. And it was one of the first few games now that I will admit that I found that it definitely felt darker. It didn't feel the same as because you're used to like real colourful graphics and all that type of stuff, and then this one was more monotone, and even the music and everything was a bit more it was on a different level. It was definitely more, how would you put it, grown up, if you will. So that's what was pretty cool. And I remember then my auntie said my cousin didn't play the game anymore, so she suggested, she says, Peter, do you want it? I was like, oh hell yeah. You know, and I remember playing.
Say no.
Yeah.
It could have been rubbish, but he wanted it.
Because I remember staying.
Just another game to play.
I remember staying down in the house. It was for a couple of days during one of the summers when they had it, and myself and my cousin sat and played it the whole time. And he was surprised because I was able to get further in it than he was. You know, so yeah, it was mad. No, that there was my first proper experience to see like a horror game on like any type of console, and yeah, it was a phenomenal experience, and it's a phenomenal game. Like, I highly recommend, if you're into Master System games or 8-bit games, I highly recommend you go and check Master of Darkness out. It is a really, really cool, it's a phenomenal game actually. It's, you know, even just now I do want to go back and play it now after seeing all this, so I will be doing that definitely over the next couple of days hopefully. Moving forward, like the next kind of real big experience, it's my own personal favourite of all horror games I've ever played, and for me it has to be when I first got me to play the Sony PlayStation for the very first time around Christmas in '96, and it was another friend of ours that had gotten a PlayStation for Christmas, and I was invited round to his house to stay over the weekend a couple of days after Christmas Day, and he had the PlayStation. Now, I'd never played the PlayStation before, never experienced it, didn't know anything about it, because I was coming off the back of playing like the Master System, or you had the SNES, and we used to play that, and that was phenomenal. I loved that. But then I got to play the PlayStation, and now my mate had gone and played a couple of other games because he was mad into all those like sci-fi shooters. There was a game he had like Shockwave Assault. Now I liked it, but I was like, yeah, it's, you know, not really my thing.
Yeah,
but
the
then
sci-fi kind of side of things.
I love sci-fi stuff now, but years ago, I think when I was younger, I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me as much when I was younger.
Yeah.
But then he showed me Resident Evil, and he's like, dude, you have to play this game. And I looked at it, and I remember reading it from cover to cover. I was like, oh, this looks cool. And like, remember saying to you before, I hated horror movies. I could not stomach horror movies when I was a kid, and I was just like, how the hell am I going to play this game? But I looked at it, but at the same time, there was just something about Resident Evil that just drew me in that I'd never really experienced. I was like, this is not anything I've ever seen before, and I couldn't believe what I was really looking at.
You couldn't stand them in horror cartoons.
Yeah.
Any bit of horror in cartoons? Nope.
No, I just couldn't stomach it. Yeah. I know. I was a big softie as a kid. That's all I can say. But with Resident Evil, it was the first time I'd ever allowed myself to really dive into anything like horror related and to sit with it. Now, I will be honest, when I first played it, I was scared, like it scared the crap out of me, because it was just like the clunky controls and trying to move around. I'd never played a game in 3D before, really, apart from like that Shockwave Assault, and to try and move a character around, I was like, to my mate, I was like, dude, what the hell am I doing? I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know how to aim the gun, didn't know how to run, I barely even knew how to walk, that kind of way. Like for me, Resident Evil is the definitive experience, because it was the game that really brought the PlayStation into my zone, or my bubble, if you will, and it just literally just blew everything out of the water. Well, I'm not going to go too deep into Resident Evil, because again, we're going to be explaining a lot more about that in a future podcast, where we're going to dedicate a whole episode to Resident Evil, because we can all agree that is among probably our favourite game of all time. Like, so there's so much we can talk about that. There's too much to even talk about in this episode, but yeah, it made me feel a way that I'd never experienced before, and it just, everything after that was a bonus. Like, I played like demos like a Formula 1, there was Destruction Derby, the Wipeout games and other stuff, but it was Resident Evil. And I remember my mate actually had Time Commando as well, and I thought that was pretty cool, but that was a tough game. But it was Resident Evil all the way. I was just like, yeah. I remember I was in the tech in secondary school, and I remember going in on the Monday and telling all the lads in the class about it. and I would not shut up about Resident Evil for weeks. They were cracking up on me. They were like, I was driving everybody mad. They were laughing at me. They couldn't see how obsessed I was with the game. And sure, even yous were laughing at me as well. I remember coming back the next night, and I was trying to tell you, and yous were like, oh, you're full of it, you're full of it.
Talking about that game.
It doesn't happen, no.
Because yous were the same as me. Yous came off the back of playing likes of Mortal Kombat, Mario Kart, Sonic the Hedgehog. So to witness something like that, to use it, I know myself, like, for me, it kind of got to a point where I realised then after a couple of weeks, I was like, right, Peter, you have to shut up. The boys have to see it for themselves to witness it. So yeah, when you did, but sure, again, that's a totally different story for another day. You've definitely seen and experienced what I was on about, because I was kind of like, I had the last laugh. I was like, well, I told you so. So but fun times, like. But Resident Evil 1, I've played a lot of survival horror games. I do a lot of survival horror stuff. If you don't know about me, I have a couple of YouTube channels. I create content on PSX Gaming Memories or on YouTube, and I also have like PS2 Gaming Memories, and I do a lot of even like horror type of stuff, like with videos and content on those channels as well. I just, over the years, I've grown to fall in love with the horror kind of like genre, not just survival horror, but everything in general, like from other types of games like FPS shooters and the whole lot. And it's just, for me, it's just taken me down a whole different kind of like route of loads of different ideas and nostalgia and stuff and different experiences that I never thought I'd ever get to witness. But I will be honest, if I had not played Resident Evil when I did, I don't think that my experiences would have been as, how would you put it, eye-catching or nostalgic as they probably could have been. I think Resident Evil opened up that floodgate for everything that I had yet to experience, and it all really started with that game. Like for me, the PS1 is hands down my number one favourite console of all time, and it really is because of the first Resident Evil game. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, that's phenomenal experience, phenomenal game. I can't say any more about it. I'm sure anyone that knows about survival horror or horror in general, you've all heard of Resident Evil. So yeah, we can all agree on that. We'll go more into Resident Evil because we will have a separate episode that we're going to dedicate solely to Resident Evil and the franchise and stuff, because it's a whole topic for an even deeper discussion. So we will be doing that soon. When I move forward, like, aside from Resident Evil, like, the amount of other games that I have played, there's a ton of different games, but I'm trying to think of the scariest game that I played. And if I'll be honest, I remember playing Silent Hill on the PS1, and yeah, that game was the first game that really kind of, apart from Resident Evil 1, to really freak me out. Well, even Resident Evil 2 and 3 did, but not in the way Silent Hill did. But it wasn't just Silent Hill that actually really done it for me. There was another game that I played on the PlayStation 2 a few years later by the name of Forbidden Siren. I think it's called Siren in other regions, and that game really, it was the first time I'd ever played a game where I didn't try to finish it there and then. I had to step away from it because it just unnerved me so much. I was afraid of it. It really got under my skin so much because it was so real. Because back then, I remember the first time I played it, and it was one of the first games I think to really use like full facial kind of construction where they had textures of like real life people's faces, not just on the actual protagonist but on the enemies themselves. So you had like people that were like zombies, they were walking around the place and they were doing their own thing and they were live and they were active, but if they seen you, they'd all, like a rabid dog, they'd attack you. But the thing was, they could have different facial structures and features, like they could smile, they could get angry, and you're just like, holy crap, that scared the hell out of me. So it did, even more so than Silent Hill ever did. And Silent Hill,
I couldn't play that game.
Yeah,
I had to stop.
Now,
it was just too freaky.
Yeah, I did revisit it. Now, I did manage to revisit it a few years later. I just plucked up the courage and I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I have found that. I found that a lot of games, some of the best games I've ever played, I've often found that, in general, that, how would you put it, I don't really get into them sometimes straight off the bat. Like, I find I might have to revisit them 2 or 3 years later and then boom, it just clicks. And that was one of those games for me. Now, it did scare the crap out of me, I'm not going to deny that, but it was one of those games to try and figure out what to do. I think I had to step away from it for that as well, for that reason alone too, because apart from being scared and just trying to pluck up the courage to play it, but I needed it in my head, I needed to figure out, right, what do I do? But then when I went back to it, it clicked. It just knew, kind of, it just made sense. And then in the last number of years, when on the PS4 I managed to download it, because they started to sell the PS2 games on the PS Store again, and I decided to buy it, and I went and I played it again, and it just brought it all back. It's still as scary as hell. And the fact is, there's loads of different endings in the game with all of the characters. Like, depending on what you do in one section, can have an outcome later on in the game, and vice versa. versa, and there's different endings all for different characters. Like, to be honest, there's that much in the game that it's overwhelming in its own right, and you probably won't finish everything because there's that much bloody stuff in it. I think that was one of the issues, I think, that I remember reading in magazines, that there was too much stuff to a point that it wasn't apparent to really figure out or understand what to do at first. Sometimes you just find it just by pure chance, so you did. But no, for me, when I finished it, I managed to finish it 2 or 3 times, but I was like, after that then it was enough. Now I did play Forbidden Siren 2 a few years later. I bought that, and I just found like I picked that up. I wasn't as afraid to play that, even though that was scary as well, but it didn't have the impact on me that the first game had, because I think I gradually built a thick skin around wanting to play it. So yeah, I think Forbidden Siren for me was the only other game apart from the first Silent Hill game on the PS1 that really got under my skin, because Silent Hill 1 in its own right is the most mature game in my opinion on the PlayStation 1, and it's down to the realism of the graphics, the 3D textures, the use of the fog, but it's the
scary babies coming after you.
Yeah, it's the textures, like when you're walking around when you're walking around the old school and even different environments, how everything just feels it just feels like everything's alive. It feels like everything's twitching and moving, and that was the sense that it gave you. But Forbidden Siren did that for me as well. When I was walking around, something just felt off. Like there were certain levels you go into.
Yeah, you were on edge.
Yeah, you were on edge because like there was loads of mist and you couldn't really see too far in front of you. The only thing you had to your advantage was you had a sight jack feature that you could see through the eyes of the enemy, so you could see their position, and that was freaky in itself, because you were like, whoa, they were actually a lot closer to you than you think. Sometimes they would nearly walk across you, only for the fact that you were hiding behind a bin and they couldn't see you. You're like, oh Jesus. So yeah, that game scared the hell out of me. Oh my god. Like, if you want a game that to scare you, that is it. Like, there was a couple of others, like there was the Project Zero Fatal Frame games, and I remember with the second one, and Steve, you had the first one on the Xbox, and they were another Zelda games. Like, they were scary games, but for me, Forbidden Siren is definitely, for me, on the last number of years, it's probably the scariest game I have played, in all seriousness. Like, and I think that was because even though like the PS1 had taken that thing to that level, the PS2 had taken survival horror to the next level. So it did, because in terms of the realism, so it definitely took it up a notch for sure. Yeah, just scary as hell.
So you enjoyed it then?
I did.
I didn't.
Yeah, I did. Once I plucked up the courage to get into it, I did. Yeah.
I think my first time playing that game was it PS3 it came out, Forbidden Siren? Oh, was that Forbidden Siren 2?
Well, no, the 2 of them were on the PS2, but there was it was like a reboot. It was Siren Blood Curse that
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because I did actually get that. It was one of the first games I ever bought for the PS3, and I did play that. And again, that was the same. It took me a while to kind of get into that as well, because again, the jump in terms of the graphics between the PS2 to the PS3, because the PS3 for the time, you know yourself, was super real, and it did take a while. Now I finished it a lot faster than I did with Forbidden Siren 2. But it still took a while, so it did. Yeah. But that's another scary game as well. Jesus.
Yeah, I couldn't handle that. When I got my PS3, I think it was one of the first few games I played. Well, within the first year or two, maybe. But I tried, but
tried and died.
One, I couldn't play it very well. I wasn't very good at it, and two, it just freaked me out too much. The enemies and things like that, it was just so creepy. Yeah, and you're right about like the whole fog thing and that. No, it was too much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so with the amount of games, like I could go on all day about the amount of them, but again, I have to save something for other people as well. So, Steve-O, what type of games are you going to be playing over the Halloween period? Are you going to be playing more horror games, or what's the type of things that you're looking forward to most to play at the moment?
Well, there's games I'm playing at the minute now, not horror related, but to come on the topic of horror and Halloween, there is one that I'm really looking forward to, but it's an add-on, and that's for Resident Evil Village. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'll be getting that myself.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Now, I haven't looked too much into it. I don't really want to know. I want to go in cold.
That's the best way to be. Just be totally surprised. Everything's fresh.
Going back to horror games, for yourself, Peter, you've after talking, and like, you've played a lot more horror games than I have. I played a lot. Actually, you probably played more than probably half the country.
That's what I say, like for a fella that was actually scared of playing horror games in general, being that was scared of anything horror related as a kid, and I've made up for it all this time. But I still won't. The thing is, I still will not watch a bloody horror movie. I won't stomach a horror movie now at all. I have no interest in them at all. I love action movies, anything with action, and if there is a bit of kind of like horror in it, but as long as it's funny, I don't mind. If there's a joke or two or whatever, like Evil Dead, for instance. I love the Evil Dead. That I don't mind that at all. Now.
Watch Stephen King's It.
I did. I did. I sat watching that with you. Yeah, I haven't watched the new ones. I have no intention of watching them. No.
No, it's good. Now, going back to the early days, now trying to jog the memory banks, I would go the Master System, Terminator. I know to me it'd be a sci-fi horror.
Yeah,
see the film and play the game. I know it's like side scrolling, just shooting, but I thought it was brilliant.
Well, I know because the movie scared the hell out of me as a kid. So.
What didn't?
Yeah. The first movie definitely did.
Terminator loved it, and even after that, then Aliens 3. I can't now remember which one it was, but it was just kind of the same concept.
We did have Alien 3. I remember we got it one year for Christmas, and the Master System version, that was phenomenal, brilliant game.
You might be able to remember this, but there's just a game sticking in my head. But I'm not sure it's for the Master System. Was there a game out in it called Alien Syndrome?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had that. I bought it.
Yeah, I remember it.
Ridiculously
I remember
taut.
playing it. I was just thinking of it there, and I'm going, yeah, I remember. I have to go and just ask you just to make sure. I was nearly sure that there was.
They were the days of the one hit kills. You were dead. One hit.
Yeah, well, you stop.
Yeah.
They were the games that you would say you wanted to play, but you weren't long throwing it in the corner and saying, I'm not playing this again because you crack up that much. But they were probably the earliest ones that I can remember, like going then forward to Mega Drive, maybe not so much. Most of the games like Sonic and Action Basic Streets of Rage and Golden Axe and stuff like that, but even the SNES, no, maybe not so much. Well, Mortal Kombat.
I suppose if you could class Mortal Kombat as horror because it's violent.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, the violence.
Yeah.
And
Mortal Kombat 3.
That's the one thing that popped into my head.
Yeah.
I'm going, well, if you can class that as a horror, well, then that'd be more updated than the Master System. But not really played that many horror games from Mega Drive, SNES. Then went on then to Dreamcast. Even Dreamcast, there was nothing really.
Code Veronica.
Yeah, there was that, but horror games that would make you poop your pants.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, survival horror, at its best. Back in the Dreamcast, I was waiting for that game big time. Like, you think of it, all we had was the magazines and reading up. I want to get this. And Resident Evil, I want it. And don't get me wrong, you had a few touch and claw moments, you know what I mean? There was, as a horror was.
Well, you would have played a few in the PlayStation as well, and we were playing them as well, like Resident Evil and stuff.
Probably, Code Veronica. I can't really think of anything else from the Dreamcast as such. No. Then going on to Xbox, remember Project Zero? That to me was scary. A grade above everything else I had played before.
Yeah, they were considered to be among the most scariest games of all time. And
I never actually played those games.
Oh, they really are. They really are scary.
Who developed them? Do you know?
Not 100%.
I'm not sure. Was it Tecmo? I'll have to have a look at it.
Not 100%. What roped me into it is more or less like you're investigating a haunted mansion. Like, say, sister looking for a brother that got lost in the mansion, blah blah. But you only have a camera. You're trying to take pictures of the ghost, and that'll damage them, that kind of way. But you go into one room, you can hear noises, and then all of a sudden there's nothing down. Then you just turn around and there's a ghost behind you, and you just I'm waiting for controllers to fly out of my hands, that kind of way. And that's what my first real experience of real horror, that kind of way. You actually feel afraid.
Yeah. Tecmo was the developers for Fatal Frame series.
Right.
What's going on with the Xbox again?
I don't think you would have played as many horror games as I did.
No, I played a lot of games, but like action and adventure. I was more into likes of RPGs and all that. Don't get me wrong, I played my fair share of RPGs. Horror games.
Now, I know you would have played all the Resident Evils, obviously, when we had them on the PlayStation. You played 1, 2 and 3, and I know I think you played probably Resident Evil 1 probably way more than any of them, because again we all used to sit and play. I don't think you played the rest of them as much. I think you Code Veronica now you did. You played that for because again you bought that on the Dreamcast.
I had the Dreamcast at the time, and I can even remember back then at the Dreamcast, because we were all mad into Resident Evil at the time, and then a newer game of Resident Evil was only released on the Dreamcast, wasn't out in the PlayStation. I can remember the wee box room that we had, and we'd all congregate in the one room, just looking, just watching either me playing or somebody else playing.
You were sitting on the top bunk. I remember that when you got it, because I was on the
throne.
I was actually doing my leaving cert at the end of secondary school, and I remember coming home, didn't even study, didn't do anything. All I wanted to do was play Resident Evil Code Veronica. I remember I sat, I think the Friday evening on the Saturday, and I think you had gone to work, I think. So I knew you were gone. It was like I snuck into the room and I went and played it when you were away.
It was only only chance you'd be able to get.
It was the only chance I was going to, because I knew when you got home that was it. I wasn't getting to play it, so yeah, I had to get me a few hours in. That's probably why I failed maths actually. Yeah, because of that.
I didn't have a hell of a lot of horror games for the PlayStation. Oh, sorry, for the Dreamcast. It probably was. Code Veronica was the main one. Xbox.
I think
Project
the Xbox.
Zero,
The Xbox. I think you'd one or two. I think in the Xbox that you would have played probably more.
I can't remember anything else really. No, I can't. Not off.
There was another one you had on the Dreamcast. Was it called Blue Stinger? Yeah.
That wasn't. Yeah. No, that wasn't a horror game. Was it?
Funny enough, it actually is. When you look at it now from a retrospective point of view, it is. But at the time, it wouldn't have had those scary kind of vibes like most of those games have.
It didn't have that. I remember. Yeah, I do remember Blue Stinger now. I even remember the case and everything. Just pure blue. Yeah. Even the Xbox myself, I didn't really have a hell of a lot apart from Project Zero. But standing out then when I moved up then to the PlayStation, friend's house, same as you went to when playing games like Wipeout, playing that and Futurist, going, what the hell is this? Time Commander, blah blah. And then he showed me, Resident Evil. And I played that and watching the cutscene at the very start, like looking at it, it was like watching the film. I was like, whoa, this is class. And it got me hooked straight away. So I thought, oh, this is good things to come, you know what I mean? And then even playing the game and character, basically free roam of the mansion. You can move 360 or shoot, or it was brilliant, you know what I mean? But the eerie music, and it was like the music wasn't for every part of every part of the mansion. Nearly every room you went into, there was a different. I don't know, there might be any music. There might be some soundtrack. There was a soundtrack for each room, which I thought was brilliant because I wasn't used to all that. And playing that game was just it basically got me loving horror games. I really, without a shadow of a doubt. And the way you were able to control that person, and you were able to, like, when you think about it back with Masters and all that, you just had to press one button to shoot. But the fact is with the PlayStation, you actually had to aim. I think it was L1 and then
R1.
L1 to aim and R1 to shoot, was it?
No, that was R1. And later consoles, so later iterations of the game, that's the way to do it, like L1 or R1.
You had to aim.
Yeah.
And this one you had to aim, and everything was just the dogs and everything coming after you, and I literally pooped myself.
Yeah.
You go into a corridor and they're chasing you, going, I have no ammo, run. Oh no, I have to go back in there again. How am I going to get past them?
Yeah. I remember because the first Resident Evil game didn't have the auto aim feature, so you had to manually aim. So trying, and especially as a beginner, trying to figure out what to do, like you're not like, holy crap,
many deaths.
Oh,
but that's why I actually loved it, because it was so new to me, and same as yourselves, that you had to aim and shoot. It was just because I'm trying to aim, say, at a dog running towards me. All of a sudden I miss. I could be wasting 3 or 4, 5, 6 bullets out of a clip. I'll probably waste a whole clip, and the dog's still coming after me.
But that was the idea of the game, you know.
Yeah, that's it, and that's because
ammunition preservation, health preservation. You know, you had to be tactile with it. Yeah.
That basically say, because you're new to the game, you're not going to be able to say, right, boom, there's a dog, I'm going to kill him in 2 bullets. No, because you're new to the game, you're going to fucking poop yourself. Simple as. So your aim's going to be all over the place. You're going to be flinching. Your hands are going to be shaking. The controller is shaking. You're going, oh no, what do I do here? How do I shoot him? You're shooting everything but the dog.
Oh yeah.
And that's the truth. Even going on from then, obviously it would be more Resident Evil. There's another one then you mentioned earlier on, Peter, that Siren.
Yeah.
I played that, but I was kind of like yourself. I played it. It's not that I was scared of it. It just didn't grip me the way that I thought that it would. You know, kind of way.
Well, the controls are very clunky in that game as well, so that can put a lot of people off too.
And trust me, there's a lot of games, horror games even as well, that controls, and if I can't get used to controls, I won't play it.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of way. If it's got controls, I won't go there. Simple as. Yeah. And that's the truth. It kind of puts me off a lot of games. Now, don't get me wrong, the game might be good, but controls ain't for me. No, I won't play it.
Yeah.
There's even a couple of even PlayStation as well. I'm sure you can remember, even after the Resident Evil, I said obviously covered, but even Nightmare Creatures.
Oh hell yeah, the first Nightmare Creatures. Yeah, that's definitely for me a standout game as well. Remember the demo that we had? That demo got played so much by all of us. The three of us.
Every demo.
What game it was.
Well, you had no money to buy a game, so the demo was always
4 games or 5 games you used to get in the demo disc?
It depended. I think the first few that we got had about 4, but it varied. But then as time went on, there was more. Cool about that demo, just when you mentioned Nightmare Creature, Steve, was the demo came out on the month of Halloween in '97 when they got to play that demo, so that made it even more awesome. Because you were in the Halloween season and getting to play a mad demo, like. Yeah.
But the funny part about it was, we played the demo, and in one level, I can't remember when the full game came out, was it the first level, or was it a different level? I can't remember.
It was the first level in the game that was in the demo. Yeah, it's like Gothic.
Yeah, Gothic, Victorian, England, whatever. But I totally enjoyed that. But see, the rest of the game, I didn't enjoy it as much, because the levels just, to me, I didn't enjoy the rest of the levels as much.
I think the levels are in the later end of the game are a lot longer, and the thing is, because with it being a beat 'em up, I think for some people it's because it's the same kind of thing over and over again. It's just batter everything until you get to the end, that kind of way. And for some people that can be a bit tedious. Game is, funny enough, it's long, and it is difficult as well. That's the funny thing about it. When you get further into it, it is tough.
Yeah.
So
another one now that you will remember, and I have to say, I loved it. Parasite Eve 2.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Parasite Eve 2 is brilliant.
I loved that game.
It's a pity that we never got Parasite Eve 1 over here. Now I managed, when I had my PS3, I set up an American account, and it was on the US store. That was how I got access to it, and now I've played it there, like more so now with doing content on the channel. I do play it through emulation, and yeah, it's a phenomenal game. But I will admit, I prefer. I do like the second one just as much because it's closer to Resident Evil in terms of its mechanics and its fighting stuff and all that.
I can't remember really playing the first one as much. I think I did, but
the first one was released in Europe.
First one never got released in Europe. You see, it was only
the only way you got it was
import.
Did you have it, Peter, on import? You did, didn't you?
No, I only had it on the PS3 years later.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's what I must. That's what it was then.
Yeah, Parasite Eve 2 was the first one, because I remember I bought that, and then we were all playing it then. So we were. Yeah, that's a phenomenal game.
Another one then now would be probably talking PS3. Well, actually no, sorry, was it PS1 or PS2? Alone in the Dark 2. Do you remember that one?
So it was Alone in the Dark 2. Jack is back. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that one was good.
They came out.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Was that the one?
Yeah.
Was that like a third one or something? No.
It was a reboot, but it was actually the fourth game in the series. See, there was only two Alone in the Dark games that came out in the PS1. There was Alone in the Dark 2, the original Alone in the Dark 2, Jack is Back. But that was an older game that came out like in late 95, early 96. But Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare came out in 2000. And I think that's the one you probably remember, because we actually all, that's a creepy game. That's very dark, a very creepy game as well. We all played that. We all played that, and I think enjoyed that one as well.
I definitely did enjoy that one.
Yeah, because it played very like Resident Evil. I think that's why we enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it's more or less the character, you free roaming, you can...
Yeah, and you can play as two characters as well. You can play as male and female.
Yeah, that's right. And I couldn't remember now which one was. I thought it was the second one, but obviously maybe you're probably right.
Yeah, no, believe me, the second one I actually bought it. I remember when I went through a phase when I was buying a load of games. I was collecting PS1 games there, years ago, and I went on eBay and I bought the second Alone in the Dark game, and I played it because again I was just mad. I wanted to get anything that was related to survival horror at the time, and I went and played it, and it's a very different type of game. Even the original game, I played it recently because I was working on another project for my YouTube channel, and I was playing Alone in the Dark to kind of put in talking about horror games, and it's, let's just put it this way, the first three original Alone in the Dark games, they're all very, very clunky and sluggish. Like, they're good games, but Jesus, you lose your mind playing them because they're so difficult.
Now then it must be that one, was it said
The New Nightmare,
it was more smooth.
Yeah, The New Nightmare was definitely a wee bit easier to get into.
Yeah. And even another one, Silent Hill, like as you said, but Silent Hill, I did find it, don't get me wrong, loved the game, and it's, to me, was horror or survival horror at its best. It really was. Thick fog, darkness, creatures.
It just had that unnerving presence that very few games had ever had.
All you had was a radio, and you'd hear static, so you knew there was an enemy around. But the problem was, you hadn't a clue where, because you were caught in thick fog.
Yeah, you couldn't see where anything was coming
from. Spring out on top of you, and there's you like with a bat or
the camera as well helped. Purposely didn't help, you know.
Yeah, and that there now really did for me.
Yeah.
I could go on even more with the lists and all that. You go to PS3, 4, 5, but they're probably the early horror games really got me into playing horror games, and obviously survival horror and whatever horror games then came after that. They definitely did it for me big time.
Hell Knight was another one. Remember that first person one that I bought? I bought it like in Cassidy's in town. I bought it for €10, and that's a very hard game to find now. But that for me was the closest to Silent Hill on the PlayStation in terms of scariness.
But was Hell Knight a first person?
It was first person, yeah.
I thought that. I get what you're saying, like the similarities, because
it was very dark
when Silent Hill went to the hell mode, they were very similar.
Because you had one enemy relentlessly chasing you. Just all you could do was run. That's all you could do. You couldn't attack him really or anything. That game was freaky as well.
Another another game, I'd class as a horror game, but you class it as you can class it as a spoof, you can class it as a comedy horror, you can class it as whatever you like. You love this one, Smith. Duke Nukem.
Yeah, there was elements in it, but you could consider it. But yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I love Duke Nukem. Yeah,
hilarious. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I actually played I owned all the Duke Nukem games on the PS1, even the third person ones.
They're
They're really good.
I remember them, like the
third person
ones.
Third person ones weren't as good as the first person.
No,
the original Duke Nukem 3D is still the best. It's the best one. It's the best of any Duke game ever made. Still is.
To me,
for sure.
Like going most of the games I played apart from Project Zero, and I can't remember. Siren was that was first person or third person? Third person.
It's third person.
Third person, yeah.
So first person, like horror games, I'd be thinking of Duke Nukem, Exhumed.
Exhumed is I love Exhumed.
Count as a horror game. Doom. They're probably the ones.
Doom's a horror game, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't play much of any of them really, but they're.
Doom is like you're getting chased by demons, and you're in hell, right?
I didn't play much of them now, to tell you the truth, but first person horror games, they'd probably be my first, and then third person, like going back, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and that, but great times.
That's it. That's it.
They just evolved from there and got even better and better, which is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Keeps me going.
Yeah, for sure. So, now we've seen, with Steve-O, he shared a lot of the games, and myself as well. So, with Dig, what type of games are you planning on playing over this Halloween period? Or have you any games that you've lined up that you want to play? And what are your kind of scenarios or opinions of your scariest or favourite games?
Yeah, no, for Halloween, I am, like Steve-O, I'm going to be playing the Winter's expansion on Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, I think we'll all be playing that. Yeah,
I am so excited to play the game in even third person mode. It's going to just be a whole new experience again, and I was one of those guys, when Resident Evil switched to first person, I was like, no, that's not Resident Evil. But I have to admit now, hindsight,
I was the same.
Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 were very good games.
Yeah.
You just didn't believe me when it
I know, Steve, I have to give you credit where it's due. Yeah, you were the man, said.
Yeah.
But I said you have to try it first person. It is good.
And I will confess that Resident Evil 7, I was like, nope, I am not playing that game. It's not Resident Evil, it's first person. They're just copying Outlast and whatnot. But I eventually did play it, and I gotta say, for me, that's the true spiritual sequel to Resident Evil 1. It's the closest.
And the funny thing is, Resident Evil 1 was originally supposed to be a first person game back in the 90s, but they couldn't do it, obviously, due to hardware restrictions.
Well, they had some crazy ideas for Resident Evil.
There was a lot of stuff, but what happened was, it wasn't until I was doing my own stuff and I was reading up about it. They were actually during the development of the early builds of Resident Evil, and Shinji Mikami managed to sit down and play. He played the first Alone in the Dark, and that's where he realised, the stuff that we want to do with Resident Evil, we're not going to be able to put it in, so we're going to have to take a lot of stuff out and go back to the drawing board. So he took inspiration from Alone in the Dark, and that's the Resident Evil that we know and loved. That's how it came to be.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Resident Evil Village for me this Halloween. That's what's going to be scaring me. And in terms of I suppose my first horror games experience, pretty much like you, Peter, would have been the likes of the Master System game Master of Darkness. You mentioned it in the last episode, and suddenly it just brought a flood of memories back to me.
Yeah, because it is a really good game. It's a phenomenal game.
And in terms of horror, I mean, it didn't scare you really, but it's horror themed. It's got Dracula, Jack the Ripper, all that kind of thing. Other than that, I would probably say Doom after that was the next horror game. I mean, Doom, visually Doom was incredible when you think about it. It was the first sort of 3D game, moving forward, back, all that kind of that immersion, And
I remember that you were a big fan of Doom, big fan.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but on the schoolyard the talk was, get the chainsaw, it's amazing. Or the double barrel shotgun, things like that. You were just like, what? And you can blow the head off, yeah. yes, it's brilliant. And it was just like, it didn't disappoint. I mean, the game's phenomenal anyway, you know, the whole kind of like maze that you had to get through, progress through the level, unlock secret doors. Incredible game, you know, Doom, when you think about it. And, you know, you could still go back and play that game today and it would still be as fun as ever.
I even remember, like, when I first played Doom, I remember it was actually, you got it off a lad that was in my class. I remember you bought that and Wipeout 2097 of him. And that was PS1, the first, that was the first time I'd ever played Doom. And it actually gave me motion sickness, which I know it does cause that by a lot of people. But I will be honest, I still go back and play Doom every so often now because I can stomach it now. But it's fun. But Doom is one of those games. It's like a timeless classic. You'll still go back and enjoy it just as much today as you ever would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could boot it up tomorrow. And,
but
you got it in VR, right?
Yeah.
But is it original Doom or
is it the new one?
VR.
Probably the new one.
The new one. It wouldn't have been the original.
Right.
It's still enjoyable.
No way.
Doom. Take it, but getting used to. But yeah, it's good.
I didn't. What did you think of? You know, the not the last Doom game that came out, the one before it, which was like it was sort of like a remake type thing.
I still haven't fully sat down to play that properly, so I haven't.
Doom 2 was the Ultimate Doom.
Yeah, there was Doom 3 as well that came out in PC. Was that early 2000s that came out?
2003, 2004. It came out originally on the PC.
I mean, it looked amazing, Doom 3.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the visuals for it, the lighting, you know, it was just looked class. I didn't play it, to be honest, until like a long time afterwards.
I know with the PC version, it was definitely the definitive version because you couldn't hold a gun and a torch at the same time. You had to swap one out for the other. You had if you were using a gun, you had to put the torch away and then you had to take the torch out. Whereas with the BFG edition that came out on the likes of consoles and the PS3 when they remastered it and stuff, they put that in where you could have both.
Because console gamers are they're not as good.
And they always be people giving out. Yeah, true.
I remember you digs playing Doom, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed games playing myself. I got more enjoyment out of you playing them and watching you playing it and even Peter playing it.
I think that was the case for a lot of games that we played over the years.
Especially the really scary ones. I don't mind you playing it. I'll watch.
I'm like,
I'll hide behind this pillow.
I had no problem playing them, but the reason I had no problem playing them, or said most of the times I didn't want to play them, because I wasn't very good at them. That's the reason why.
But you know, when you mentioned that, like you enjoyed watching me play the game, the thing was, it was like almost like teamwork. You know, you'd be like, oh no, what about the door back there that you didn't check?
Exactly.
If you didn't remember, you'd always have somebody be like, you got to try this, and then you get through it almost like a team.
Yeah, exactly.
It was cool. So that was basically, they were my first experience of horror. I don't know, would you class, like, Mortal Kombat was quite vicious and graphic.
Yeah,
I did mention that, but
would you class it? I don't know, like, I mean,
if you were to base it off of the graphic, the violence in it, then you probably could. But
it's definitely mature audience.
Exactly. So,
but
that's where you'd aim, as you say. Can it be? It probably could because of that. You know, like fatalities and blood pouring onto the ground, and you probably, I don't know, you probably could.
Yeah, like I always remember Sub-Zero fatality, where he rips your head off and the spine dangling.
Yeah, like, that was deadly.
You know, as an 11-year-old kid, you're just like, I shouldn't be playing this, but this much makes it fun.
You're closing the door that your mama don't see it.
Like, Jesus. Like, my parents, like, oh, you like that game Mortal Kombat? They had no clue what Mortal Kombat was. Let's say if they did, they'd be like, you're not playing that game. It's too violent. But, I suppose if you cast Mortal Kombat as horror, that's one of the first experiences. But I will say, in terms of the scariest game I've ever played, I think I'd have to go with Silent Hill. Because I don't know if you remember, Peter, or even you, Steve, when I got that game, I got the import. I was, suppose we shouldn't talk about getting our consoles chipped and stuff like that there. But at the time,
you had to play games whatever way you could.
Yeah. And we couldn't afford the full price games.
Should you remember we played Dino Crisis? You got it, and remember the Japanese version, and we managed to finish it, and we hadn't a clue what to do, but just because we were so good at Resident Evil, we just kind of figured it out.
Everything, even the dialogue on screen was in Japanese, and I still managed to finish it.
Yeah, you were telling
me. Puzzles and everyone was done in Japanese. I'm fluent now, by the way.
You were fluent in Japanese, I have to say.
Yeah, that was before the internet and everything could happen. But
no guides, no nothing.
Yeah, no. So at that time, obviously the PlayStation got chipped, and it opened that world to playing games. You could play even more games than before because you could afford them because obviously you were getting them down a side street, of a dodgy character. But that Silent Hill game I got was an import from the US.
Yeah.
And I know the European version, the babies had.
They'd removed them.
Did they remove them and replace them with a different enemy?
They had a different enemy. They were like brownish. They had claws on their hands, whereas the
they were like little animal type things. Yeah, like little bears, teddy bears.
Yeah.
Would it be a case that all, say, American games, just say like as you say Silent Hill, then European game, or American games, talk say for horror, would they be more gory than European games?
Back then, different regions used to have different tolerances on what they allowed in terms of violence. It's not the case now. It depends. Now it can be a bit funny nowadays, but generally it's a bit more lax in that area.
Well, I think they have the proper ratings in there. You have
that's it. True.
Certainly, like GTA, and that would be 18. Explicit. So Silent Hill definitely, and Steve, you touched on it. Like the mechanics of the game was incredible. You had the radio with you. The static would go off when the enemies came close, so it was like, I've got one here, and it would amplify the sound of the static when you got closer to them. And you had the camera. Like when you say Resident Evil 1 came out before it, and it was the defining survival horror game, and then we had Silent Hill come out. But Silent Hill was completely 3D. There was no pre-rendered backgrounds or nothing
like that. No.
And the camera was sort of fixed, but with
in some areas, I don't know where you went.
So it still made it. You didn't know what was around that corner type thing. But nothing prepared you for when the game first switched and evolved to Hell mode.
Yeah.
What would you call it? Would you call it Hell mode, or would you?
I think it's sort of like
outer world.
Yeah.
I remember that wave, the rustic feel, like everything was just banned.
Everything felt creepy and alive. That was just.
Really, I always associate it with Hell. So you're in the Hell version of the area. As you say, the walls would change into like rusted metal.
Yeah, rusted metal, and everything was rusted, like falling apart, and
everything. It was just dark. There was no daylight.
It was just really creepy.
And you had your flashlight then.
I think that's what you had, was it?
Yeah. The flashlight would just kind of like light up the areas you're going in.
You weren't allowed weapons right in the Hell mode, or say.
You had your weapons.
You did, yeah. You had your weapons, yeah.
Well, you had ammo for them was another thing.
Yeah, that was it.
I can remember all that. I just can remember. Is it just a flashlight you had trying to navigate through it?
You had the flashlight and the radio. The radio would pick up the static of enemies coming close to you, and you had the flashlight sort of like to give you an idea of what was going on.
I do remember was one evening I called over to you and you were playing it, and you were actually in the Hell mode. I think you were fighting a boss, and I remember actually sitting on the bed. You were sitting on one end of the bed, I was sitting on the other. You had the bunk bed in the room time. I think I fell asleep and you were like trying to fight the boss on your own. You're like, Peter, wake up.
Yeah.
No, I think I'll tell you, I fell asleep. I conquered it. I was gone.
You did, yeah. I was, it wasn't even Hell mode. It was on the school. You got to the roof of the school. And you fought the first main enemy of the game.
Yeah.
And I was like freaking out playing this. Like Silent Hill is not survival horror really. It's psychological horror.
Yeah.
But, definitely.
It takes everything to a totally different level.
Yeah, I just remember like freaking out, like sitting there, and I was just like, this is scary. It's like, wake up. I don't want to be able to play this. But anyway, like Silent Hill was just incredible, and that theme song for Silent Hill, wow, incredible. Yeah. I would listen to that to this day. Like I'll stick that on YouTube or wherever. Incredible. And it's just the music, the story was amazing. Everything about it, I loved Silent Hill. I loved multiple endings. You had the wacky one with the aliens. I loved it. I just thought it was really cool. The whole story and lore in Silent Hill was really cool.
There was a load of different endings. Five endings. Yeah, there was 5 endings. I think.
Around that, I think.
So much replay value in that game.
Exactly. That's what I have to say. I loved Silent Hill. I really did. Really did.
And my first video game crush was the nurse. Do you remember the nurse? Sybil was the cop.
The cop,
yeah, she was the cop. Yeah.
Lisa was her name, I think.
Yeah, Lisa. Yeah. But that I just loved Silent Hill. I just thought it was amazing. But having said all that about Silent Hill and how much I loved it, I never played the other ones.
I played the second one.
The second one came out in on PlayStation 2. Am I correct?
You have to play the second one.
Yeah, but there's no off topic about that. A rumour has it that the second one is being remade.
I'd say so. That has to be.
But it's all over Twitter that.
Yeah, well, see, that's considered to be probably the pinnacle of survival horror, even to this day.
Yeah.
Could have to
but that was PS2, right?
Yeah, it was PS2.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't play it, because I didn't get a PS2 for like well into the life cycle of the PS2.
Yeah, because I remember like I had my PS2 actually before you got your one. You didn't have your one for a good while, because I remember when I got my one, I only got it for GTA 3, and then gradually I got to play other games. Funny enough, I got a loan of one of our other mates. He took it down. It was Extermination. I think that was the very first ever horror game on the PS2, and it was very similar to Resident Evil. I think there was a couple of guys I think that had worked on Resident Evil. I think had worked on Extermination, because there was some similarities to it. So that was a good game there. That was a really good game. So it was scary as well.
I can't remember if I played it or not.
That was a pretty cool game there. It's often overlooked. People don't really talk about it that much, but it's actually a really good game.
I think in terms of Silent Hill being the scariest game I ever played, but I think probably the scariest moment in the game genuinely freaked me out. House Beneviento and Resident Evil Village. I still struggle to play that now. Like even though I know I sprint, and it's the only part in the game where I won't take my time or do it, and I'll sprint and get it done, completed now, just to get out of it.
I will be on. I agree with that, because when I was playing that a couple of months ago, when I managed to finish it, that was the first time since I actually allowed myself to sit down with Resident Evil 7 fully. That creeped me out. Yeah, that was just messed up.
Yeah, and just the sounds, sounds of the baby chasing you. Yeah. You're just this is just all wrong.
It's wrong. Yeah,
hiding under the bed, waiting for them to come into the room and go the other side of the bed so you could go.
It was you when you were kids. If it was an adult coming into the room, it was you hiding under the bed to get away from them.
Oh yeah, no, Jesus. Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the freakiest moments in a video game that I've played. But in terms of my favourite horror game, it's pretty much the same as you guys. Yeah. Resident Evil 1.
Yeah.
I'm not going to over talk about this, because as you said, we're going to do a podcast.
We are going to do a full on podcast.
It's dedicated to it. But I always remember, like, going back on what you said, your first experience playing a PS1, that was one of the games, and you would not shut up.
No, I never stopped talking about it. Yeah.
Oh. So none of us had a PlayStation 1. We were aware of a PlayStation 1. We had played them, but we didn't own them. And then you kept going on about this game Resident Evil, and you were like, oh, you're in a creepy mansion and you can run from room to room.
I can safely say I think I drove you mad. Yeah.
Yeah, but
maybe like you're full of it.
Yeah, exactly. My whole at that time, right? I was so used to it. So I was on the SNES at the time.
Yeah.
So I was used to 16-bit side scrolling.
Because I remember you used to take the SNES over the weekends. You sit and play Mortal Kombat, Strike, or Mario Kart and stuff. Yeah.
You're basically playing 2D games all the time, and if you were playing like if it was Zelda, it was still 2D. You were looking downward on the character. If you were playing Mario, or even if it was Mega Drive and you were playing Sonic, your objective was to go from the left side of the screen to the right. Yeah, exactly. That's all I knew. Yeah. That's all I knew. And Peter was saying, oh, you can go into the start of the game, you go into the dining hall and you have to solve puzzles, and there's a big dining table. And I was like, and can you walk around the table? And he was like, yeah, you can go all the way around the table. I was like, shut up. I was like, just stop. I was like, I know. I didn't. It's not that I didn't believe you, but I was just like, he's telling me something
to comprehend myself.
Yeah, the idea of even just going around the object, I was just like, no. I was thinking
side scroll
16-bit pixels, going left to the right of the screen, and I was sure that I was going to be disappointed when I saw this game. I totally misunderstood. I was just saying to myself, I'll totally misunderstand what this guy's talking about, and I'll be let down. But I wasn't. My God, that game, holy crap.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, the music, Stevie, you talked about it, the soundtrack going from areas of the mansion to, and like they're still ingrained in my head.
Because when Steve played it for the first time, when he realised how good it was, then he wouldn't shut up about it, because he knew what it was about. Yeah.
There's just so much good about the game.
And you know what?
It was incredible.
I had the last laugh. I kept telling you, and you.
Yeah. No, yeah, credit was due.
Yeah.
One more time he's right.
It'd be interesting. Imagine like if you hadn't played it that one time.
I don't worry.
Like,
we would have found it out for ourselves. We'd be fine. We would have found it out for ourselves.
It's like I said earlier on. I genuinely believe that if we hadn't played it when we did, I think that our experiences of it in terms of how we see it and feel about it now would be very, very different. You know,
we'd enjoy it, but not to the extent.
Not to the extent that we do. We wouldn't be as passionate about it. I don't think as we are.
No, definitely. No, I'd agree with that.
And the fact is that we still talk about it in such a high regard. It proves that it is a defining moment for all of us in terms of our experience with games. Like, because for me, it changed everything. It really did. Like,
I totally agree. It was the single biggest impact.
Yeah, and the fact is because I was getting to experience the PlayStation for the very first time as well, and that was one of the first games I played on it. It just everything was next level. And the fact is, it was that transition from 2D games to 3D games. I was just like, oh, it gave me a feeling like butterflies, like, you know, like we say if you're like Christmas or your birthday, you're waiting like for whatever Christmas to come and do it, that kind of excitement you get, and that's what it made me feel. And I wouldn't mind, like, I wasn't a child at the time. I was 14 when I first got to play it, like, and I felt like that. I felt like a little kid in a candy shop. Like, it just for me that was I think the thing as well. It made me feel like that again, and I think that's what it was, because it was new, it was different, and it was just cool. I mean, like, cool.
I have to admit, like, for me personally, it was the single biggest impact that video games had on me, because at that time you were transitioning from 2D games to 3D games, and I know, like, I did play a 3D game before it, actually, when I think about it. That was Virtua Racing. I think was it on the Mega Drive? Yeah,
it was on the Mega Drive.
It was a Sega game. Yeah. Now it looked garbage. Like, it just now. I mean, it looks garbage now, but even at the time, I was just like, no, give me Outrun any day to go for this.
Yeah.
But when I seen Resident Evil 1, I saw the pre-rendered backgrounds, and it looked. I mean, at the time, it looked amazing.
Oh, it looked amazing.
That mansion, I was just totally immersed in it. I was like, I wanted to be in that mansion. I was like, how cool is this place?
The music and the sound effects from the zombies was
when you walk into it, you go through a door,
it was
and
so
you're in a
creepy
hall, and you're waiting to hear anything. Next thing you hear a bit of a shuffle and them sniffing, you know, the way they used to sniff, and you were like, oh, turn around back.
I'll never forget the first time I was playing, the dogs jumped through the window. I really did nearly crap myself.
And even the music as well, because the music's really high tempo for that part, but getting the blood pumping, you know. But the story, the lore of the series was all amazing. I enjoyed everything. I enjoyed the characters, the soundtrack, amazing. I loved the puzzles. I mean,
puzzles,
the game had puzzles that kept people.
It had to, how would you put it, break the pace of the game up as well.
Absolutely. But the puzzles weren't so straightforward.
No, they weren't.
And this was before the time of the internet, where you could just go, right, I'm stuck in this game, Google.
Because the one thing I loved about the game was the backtrack, and the fact that you had to explore.
Yes,
and I loved exploring. That was, for me, the best thing.
I had a box to collect something else, to put it somewhere else. You'd keep chopping and changing the whole time.
Do you know what was an interesting mechanic? You know what was an interesting mechanic about the game? You know the way, like, certain things you could click on them, and it would give you a brief description. It'd be like, painting of this mansion or something like that. You were saying to yourself, it would make you think, it would like, is this involved in a puzzle or something? So you'd go and you'd be searching
everything. And that's where we used to find loads of hidden items like ammo and health and stuff like that, because you were just searching everywhere.
You were just like proper detective.
Sleuth.
But like, I mean, to complete the game in under 3 hours, that's cool. But I mean, your first playthrough of that game would have been well over 20, maybe 30 hours.
Because we were just taking our time, you're just enjoying it.
It was tough as well. I mean, you had to preserve ammunition, you had to preserve health, you had to be tactile in how you went about it, and you know, you had a whole saving of the game, that, you know, you got to make sure that you save it, but you could end up running into a boss fight before getting the save. They were like, oh crap.
I remember one of the lads taking the PlayStation down that had Resident Evil as well, like, and he took it down and he took the save file down, and he was in the laboratory. I remember he was like, oh, I'm going to go out to play football with the lads. You were all out playing football. I was like, dude, I said, how the hell are you going to kill the tyrant? You don't have 2 bullets in your Beretta. What am I supposed to do with this?
I've got a knife.
and I was like, did you waste every bullet? And he's like, yeah. I was like, how? You know, but he did. He just did.
Yeah. Right, so that's Resident Evil 1, my favourite survival horror game. Favourite horror game, should I say, of all time.
Yeah, I think it's the same for Saw. I think it's the same for Saw.
So that's really my kind of like description or my thoughts on horror games.
That's it.
It's kind of the same as yourself, things. And then like after that, then like say Silent Hill came along. It was just like, to me, when I compared the two of them, horror wise, I know Resident Evil started me, but Silent Hill, it finished me. It was, to me, a lot more scarier, a lot more in depth.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
Than Resident Evil will ever be. As much as I loved Resident Evil, because that's what got me into it. But Silent Hill, without a shadow of a doubt, boom, hands down.
Definitely freakier game.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, hands down.
Absolutely. I think for me, even personally, like there's, I could go on like with the amount of games that's out there. Like even like recently, because I've been working on other projects, like I mentioned, from my YouTube channel, and I have been playing quite a few survival horror games, and some of them I'm just like going back to playing them years. I'm like, these games are just phenomenal. They're awesome. But then there's other ones that I've never actually played before, and I've only experienced them for the first time, and I'm like, these are actually different, and they're pretty cool. Now some of them are quite clunky, and you play them for a little while, you're like, they might have been cool back in the day, but then some of them were in Japanese, so you didn't really know what was going on, but they were fun to play. Even like with other games like PS2, and even modern games, like I was mentioned to you, Dig, the other day, I was playing a couple of other games because I was using trying to get a bit of footage. I was playing a game from a crowd called Puppet Combo. It's called the Power Drill Massacre.
And Combo, I like the name.
You're locked in like an old warehouse, and it's like Resident Evil style, but trying to get out, because all you've got is a torch. You can't attack anybody, and you have to kind of get away. But the problem is, when your man finds you, you can't really get away from him because he's faster than you. And the thing is, what's wrong is trying to play. It tries to use tank controls, but the problem is it uses the analog sticks on the controller in the favour of the tank controls, and that's the worst way to play a freaking tank control game, because it's even worse than using the D-pad. It's so it wasn't good. But the game, as soon as you get near it, all the screen goes bananas, and it's like raw, and it scared the living crap out of me. But what happens is the screen keeps going red, like as if he's hitting you, even though he's not even anywhere near you. It's because it's trying to do this panic thing where you're panicking, but because the screen's going red, you can't see what's going on. And I was destroyed. I was like, what the hell? It got to a point that the sound is so instant, it literally will make you jump. It scared the living crap out of me, and I was like, no, I'm done. I played it just for a little bit to record footage for a video I was doing, and after that I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not playing it no more. I just like that game is just it's too insane. It's too full on. I was like, no, I like to build up the stuff. This thing's just nuts. But I know the game isn't fully finished. There's still a lot of stuff that needs to be tweaked. I know it's been in development for a while, so who knows? Hopefully at some point it might be finished. But yeah, I think we'll leave it at that for now. I think like in terms of like the games, like we all could share a lot more like around the horror games and that. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to save that for future episodes, because again, we have so many experiences and so much stuff to talk about. And with Resident Evil in general, I know like we've all mentioned Resident Evil, but I think we're going to dedicate an entire episode to that, because that's just in a league of its own in terms of our experience, or combined experience.
We started basically.
Yeah, that's it. But that's what really took everything to the next level. Yeah. And I think that deserves its own dedicated episode, which we will be doing in the future. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Absolutely, absolutely.
Is there any upcoming survival horror games that you are looking forward to?
Resident Evil 4, the remake.
Yeah. Oh wow, Resident Evil.
Yeah, it has to be another Resident Evil game.
It's Resident Evil 4, and I've been truthfully honest, I really haven't been looking that far ahead. Like, what would you say, in between that, the only one that did come to me was RE4.
Yeah.
But in between that, there will be other games, but I never even looked.
I will admit,
I never even looked.
I will admit, I do be looking on, because I always be checking games on the likes of Steam and even like the PlayStation Store for like any like indie titles, because some of the indie titles are really, really good, and there is a few of them that I have my eye on as well. But I'm just waiting to see if I can get them a bit of a discount. I'll see what happens when I have money. I'll do that. But other than that, then probably Resident Evil 4 more.
Yeah, so, I'm the same. Resident Evil 4, but I will be getting. I'm going to be getting Callisto Protocol.
Oh yeah.
Likely we'll get Dead Space remake too.
Yeah. Dead Space is another phenomenal game.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll probably be disappointed.
What
is RE4 remake? Is that going to be in VR?
Actually, I don't know.
I don't know. I'd say that's something they probably could add at a later stage, but I don't know. I
fucking hope it is.
Yeah.
Because I know the PS VR 2 is coming out.
Well, they are adding Resident Evil 8, I think, to VR as well as one of the options, I think, soon too.
Well, I'm looking here, and they're suggesting that Resident Evil 4 remake is going to have PSVR 2 content. Whether you can play the entire game, or is it just just a mode.
I hope it's the whole game, just like Resident Evil 7. I hope so.
Sure, it's something to look forward to, as they say.
A shot of a doubt.
Yeah. Right, sure. I think here, guys, we'll wrap it up with that, because like we could go on, and we, at the end of the day, like we want to save stories for another day, because there is so much to talk about. But we'll leave it there at that for everyone, and we just say thanks for everyone for listening along. And again, you can find us on all of our social media platforms. Like, you can find me on YouTube and even on Twitter and Instagram. I say PSX Gaming Memories. They're pretty much the handles I use on all of my platforms. And say with Dig, you can find him on, I think, PSN, is it, and even on Twitter?
Yeah, PSN, you can get me on Digvaldi, and on Twitter also it's Digvaldi_PSN.
Yeah, cool.
On Instagram it's Digvaldi too.
Yeah, and then obviously then with Steve-O, then you find him, I think you're on the PlayStation Network, isn't it?
Just on the PSN,
yeah. So yeah, we'll just leave it there for that there now, and we'll continue on in the next episode. We'll be taking a step back, we'll be going back over, like, so moving on from the 8-bit era of gaming, we'll be moving more so on to the 16-bit era of gaming, because we do have a lot to talk about with the tables of like the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo and stuff. Yeah, so yeah, we will be diving more into that now in the next episode, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks to everybody that's listened along, and hope you've enjoyed it and that you've got some nostalgia moments out of it as well, because I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to a lot of the stories that we've shared here today, because yeah, they're awesome. So again, I just want to thank everyone for watching, and we will see you all in the next one. So that's myself, Peter, signing off, and Digvaldi and Steve-O, we're all done.
Bye.
Yeah,
goodbye. Till next time.
Cheers, and we'll see you all in the next
episode.
one. Yeah, cheers. See you later.